All right, we got DBLC week 4. You'll notice I've made some changes to the team. Joltik just wasn't doing it. I didn't see it doing anything. And after I got my fade ran by the dino I didn't respect, I realized that having a dragon and or fairy resist, I guess I had scrub, but having another fairy resist doesn't hurt when there's some scary offensive fairy types. So I decided to drop the Joltik and also the Zora, just because it gave me a little more points to play with and I could do something a little different. So I dropped the Zora and the Joltik, and I picked up Q-Fant and Mischief. Q-Fant is really nice because it gets, Heavy Metal, Heavy Slam. You don't have to run Heavy Metal too, because this thing's like really fat. So a lot of times you can just run Sheer Force still, and Sheer Force is a great ability. I don't know that I'll ever bring like a Sheer Force Life Orb Q-Fant, because the thing is, well, honestly, it isn't even that, isn't even that defensive, right? Like, 72 is good bulk, but like only 50s in the defensive stats isn't that much. It's got a really high attack stat. So Life Orb, Sheer Force, it might come, it might not. I don't know. We'll have to see once we get to future weeks. And the other pickup was Mischief, because really high attack stat. Decent physical bulk, right? 60-60 is not bad. And then a decent speed tier for scarfing. And then also having Intimidate is nice, and Stakeout is a really good ability on some offensive sets. So I really like this mon. This mon was surprisingly cheap. Obviously, I still wanted the Dark type to deal with stored power users. But Zoro I just felt was really expensive, and I don't really like using that mon because I did lose a Draft League final because my Zoro arc did not lock in, but I digress. So yeah, I switched Joltik and Mischief for, or it's not Joltik, Joltik and Zarua for Q-Fant and Mischief. So we're going to jump into my opponent's team. He has one of the ponies, and he somehow got Pancham too. These are two very scary Pokemon. I'm not excited to be fighting them, but I think I have some good prep. So we're going to dive into that. So first things first, we got the pony. This is similar to regular pony, but more annoying. Obviously has that 90 speed stat, which is stupid. Its offensive stats are also stupid. 85 in attack, 160, or not 160, 65 in special attack, and this thing gets like a lot of coverage. Even just Psychic, Deagly, and Mystical Fire hits a lot of stuff. And then if you want to go physical, which you sometimes will want to, you get Zen, you get Play Rough, you get Wild Charge, you get Horsepower, you get Iron Tail. So yeah, this thing gets so much coverage, has really good stats, and a decent typing of pure Psychic, because there's actually not that many Psychic types in Little Cup, even though it's one of the scariest types. Then we got Pancham. Pancham is a very solid fighting type, arguably one of the best. Scraggy is obviously going to be higher, and then it's whether or not you put this over Galar-Fetched. But yeah, this thing is also very scary. Its attack stat is also nothing to sneeze at, 82. Attack, decent Fizz bulk, as we were talking about with kind of the Mischiefs, just under 70, and then just over 60 on Fizz bulk. Let me close that real quick. Just over 50 on Fizzbulk, and gets all of the coverage under the sun, and I believe also gets access to like bulk up berry juice sets, which can be a problem. So I'm gonna hope that they're not gonna be a problem this week, but we will see. Then you got Magnemite. Honestly, the fact that he got all 3 of these first picks is despicable. This is like really good 3 Pokemon, and if you look down the list, he gets even more heaters. This is a really scary team, if I'm being honest. Magnemite is really fat, gets sturdy, which is really nice in Little Cup because you get access to sturdy berry juice, and also 95 special attack for some reason, and that thing can can fire off stuff like thunderbolts, flash cannons, neutral like normal type Terra Blast, because it doesn't get any coverage, but still just the 80 base power normal move with that 75 attacks special attack stat, you're gonna feel it. Obviously this thing's Fizzbulk is despicable. 70 Fizzbulk, you throw EV Light on this thing, it doesn't die. But yeah, I digress. So yeah, Magnemite's a bit of a problem. Then you get Sandile. This thing does all the same things that Crook does, but just less effectively, because obviously it's the baby, not the big boy. But still, 72 attack stat, 65, so really good for that Scarf speed tier. And then still gets Intimidate, still gets Moxie. So it does the Crocodile things, but just as a Sandile, right? So watch out for Choice Scarf Moxie, watch out for Intimidate, Stealth Rocks, Knock Off, all of that, right? Then you get Tentacool. This thing is also just like Tentacruel, but a child. Still has that insane special bulk. For Little Cup, any stat over like 95 is stupid. So yeah, stupid special defense stat on this thing. Really surprisingly good speed tier. Like, you wouldn't expect it, but like it kind of has that. And then it gets access to spin, T-spikes, flip turn. It gets a lot of stuff. And yeah, EVLA on this thing also goes really hard, because then that thing becomes a special sponge. We'll go with that. I was going to say punching bag, but I don't feel like that does it justice. Then we got Archon. Now, this thing is like Archeops, but a child. 112 attack. That's stupid. Yes, it still does have the fetus, but I know my opponent loves to run Berry Juice on this thing. Obviously, why would you not? And still, 74 special attack is nothing to sneeze at. This thing gets Rock Blast to work around your own Berry Juices or to work around Sturdy, which is really obnoxious. And then I think it gets access to Acrobatics, which is, again, stupid. You're going to hear me say that a lot about this team. Yeah, but no. Just 112 attack is stupid. 70 speed is insanely high. I think it hits, what, 17? Yeah, it hits 17, which is, again, I don't like that. That's not nice. So, yeah, I have a couple of Scarfers this week, but we'll get to that. Then you got Deerling. This thing, it does a lot of the grass-type things. Seed, Synthesis, growth, all that kind of stuff, but it also has a surprisingly high attack speed stat. This has a very good speed stat. The attack stat here also isn't bad, especially when you consider the fact that, you click growth or you get Sap Sippered if I'm stupid, but I don't have a single grass move, so I imagine he's going to go Serene Grace, and then you just get normal grass, and I think you also get like Zen, Play Rough, and Jump Kick for some reason. So good speed stat, decent attack stat, tons of util, and then also gets Double Edge. And as we've seen with Top Gun over here, Stab Double Edge hits very hard. And then Litwick and Pineco, these aren't real Pokemon. I haven't seen my opponent bring them to any of their games so far. Pineco is going to get obliterated by like half my team, and Litwick will too. And I think he just has to respect that, and he has a way better Pokemon to bring instead of them, which is your typical Little Cup draft strategy. You draft like, I'm going to have to say the numbers, 6 or 7 top-heavy Pokemon, and then you just pick up some extra ones that fill any holes that you might have. And in that case, and in his case, it was just kind of that Spinner, that Spiker, and that Rocker is what the Pineco does. That's really all it does. It also has 30 Berry Juice, but like you're not bringing that over Magnemite, and you're going to put either Berry Juice or Eviolite on Magnemite. You're always going Berry Juice on Archon, so it really just... sometimes it just won't have the opportunity to run that 30 Berry Juice, and then you're kind of SOL. So let's jump into my team now. First things first is we have Qfant making the debut on his first week. His team is very physical, and so I felt like having a solid Fizz Pokemon was not going to be a bad idea. Also, this pony scares me. Mystical Fire only does like 35%, 35 to 40%, which is really nice. But obviously, if it gets like a Calm Mind off, then things get scary. My Heavy Slam does not kill. Even if I went Heavy Metal, it wouldn't kill. But, I digress. We are Earthquake, just because it hits a lot of his other team. I felt about running like some kind of sheer power move. Wait, if I'm... Yeah, none of these moves None of these moves get a sheer force boost. I'm gonna go heavy metal. I wasn't thinking. But yeah, even with heavy metal, heavy slam won't kill the pony. It will kill the Archon, and then EQ is gonna do a lot of damage into the mons that it's super effective into. So this thing is pretty fat. It's gonna hit pretty hard. I have protect for the deer, right? So I can scout jump kick, and then also if I scout it properly, he takes 50% of his health, and then I heavy slam him to the grave. And curse if my opponent ever gives me a turn to click it, which I suspect he won't. Then we have Mischief. I was looking at it, and Choice Scarf is very good here. I decided not to go Stakeout because I don't really think I'm going to be forcing many switches. Like, Mischief doesn't really come in and threaten things out. The only thing it really threatens out is the pony, but, like, what's your switch in? Right? Like, you don't really want to switch in Magnemite because he doesn't have reliable, like, he has Pancham, that's your reliable Dark Resist, but are you going to put money on the fact that I'm not going to click Play Rough? Probably not, right? So I feel like I'm not really going to be forcing many switches, so that's why I decided to go with Intimidate, because also his team is very physical, so just being able to switch around, get some Intimidates off, and then just hit really hard with Adamant, Choice Scarf, crunches. Then we have Axew, who's going to be another Choice Scarf Mon. I am fully stealing the set that ran my fade back in week 2. Choice Scarf Outrage. I am Mold Breaker Stomping Tantrum to get around Sturdy Magnemites, and I guess to a degree Sturdy Pineco if it comes, but like I said, it's not coming, and if you look 2 months to your left, you're going to see the answer to that. So, yeah, no, this thing is just here to be fast, probably lead it, get some early kills, and then get out and make out like a bandit. Outrage and Tantrum are the main moves I'm going to be clicking. If I get this thing into an endgame and, you know, I have Ace for Pancham, but I think that's still weaker than Outrage, and then Crunch for the pony if I get there, but again, I think it's still weaker than Outrage. This thing is pretty much always going to click Outrage or Tantrum if it's the Magnemite. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Then we got Meowth. Very standard set, Fake Out, Feint, U-Turn. Although this week I am T-Bolt. Fake Out into T-Bolt will kill the Archon before it has a chance to proc Berry Juice. I am faster. The Fake Out obviously takes his turn, and then Thunderbolt kills. If he decides to go Covert Cloak, well then, okay, you go Covert Cloak, and I cry a little bit, but like that's not a real set. If you're running Covert Cloak and Little Cup, you're a mad lad. But yeah, this thing's just gonna do typical Meow things. Fake Out, Feint kills a lot of things. T-Bolt's there for Archon, and then U-Turn for momentum control. Then we got Wingull. It's just a standard breaker set. I had the option I had an open move slot. I thought about putting Roost, but figuring I was Berry Juice, I figured, might as well. There's going to be a lot of times where I don't like clicking Hurricane. I hate clicking moves that aren't 100 accurate, but obviously into some stuff I'm going to have to click Hurricane, right? If this thing's staring down a Tentacool, Hurricane's going to 2-co, Air Slash is going to like 4-co. So in that case, I kind of have to click Hurricane. So I wanted it on this set, but I was given the luxury to have Air Slash for those things that it's going to kill anyway, so where I don't really have to risk that Hurricane. Yeah, something like Roost or Knockoff could have went a little better here, but I am going to take my insurance, and if it bites me in the ass, well then I know, hey, next week if I run a similar set, don't do that. And the last but not least, we have basically our mascot at this point, Eviolite Skrelp. We are physical again, Liquidate, Adaptability. We have Play Rough for Pancham. I decided to go physical because a little worried about like a Calm Mind Pony, which I'm realizing this thing doesn't really beat, but hey, I digress. I also want to Play Rough to hit Pancham, so I decided to go physical invest. That's not to say that I couldn't put some kind of special move on here, but I felt better with the moveset that I have, which is Liquidate, Play Rough for Pancham, Flip Turner for Momentum, and his only poison type is Tentacool, and his only removal outside of Tentacool is the Pokemon that doesn't exist. Pokemon that's definitely, like, if this thing comes, I'll be shocked. But at the same time, you're like, hey, it's 5 to 6 Pokemon. So if I manage to kill that tentacle, then I'm going to put up my spikes. This is also here to absorb spikes if his tentacle brings them, or if he brings some kind of suicide lead, hazard stack pineco, I can suck up those spikes, and then everything else stays on the field, and my Wingo loses like half its health every time it switches in. But I digress. So that's going to be the team for the week. I think now officially every member of my box has made their debut. I think Axie was the only one that hadn't. So, yeah, we're going to see how the battle goes. Hopefully we start turning our luck around here. We had a really close battle last week. I got a little unlucky, and I piloted the end game a little poorly. But sometimes that happens, and you got to deal with it. But we got really close to winning the last one. I'm confident I can win this one, and we're going to flip that switch, go into playoffs, and we're going to try and get that top 4 seed so that we can get that first bye. But we'll see what happens. So I will catch you guys in the battle. Take care.